Have you ever wondered how life can change in an instant? Imagine when everything you thought you knew transforms right before your eyes. Sometimes, fate has surprising ways of showing us what truly matters. In this story, we're going to follow a man, accustomed to success, as he discovers something far more valuable: the true meaning of love, family, and purpose. If you've ever caught yourself thinking your life could take an unexpected turn, then this story will speak directly to your heart. Let's dive in. It was a typical day on the busy streets of Manhattan, with the sound of honking horns, hurried footsteps, and city life happening in every direction. John Wick, a 30-year-old multimillionaire thanks to the success of his tech startup, was used to this routine. His Audi A8 glided through the avenues, the sound of the powerful engine a soft echo between the buildings. He was on his way to yet another meeting, one of those nights without any deep meaning, where luxury and superficiality met. For this particular meeting, he had decided to buy flowers, a gesture he rarely made, but one that seemed fitting. As he passed through the bustling central area, his eyes caught sight of a small flower shop on the corner of the street. Daisy's Flower Shop, the simple yet charming sign grabbed his attention. John parked his car in front of the store and stepped out, imagining it would be a quick stop. The flowers would be just another accessory to impress his date for the evening. John parked his Audi A8 in front of the flower shop, intending to buy a simple bouquet for the meeting. He entered the store, absorbing the soft aroma of flowers and the calmness of the environment. The contrast between the tranquility of that small space and the hustle of Manhattan outside made him relax for a moment. Daisy, with her welcoming demeanor and kind eyes, greeted him with a genuine smile, as she did with all her customers. For John, it was just going to be another quick purchase, but something about her manner sparked his curiosity. He asked for the bouquet without really knowing what he wanted, and she, with the skill of someone who loved what she did, began assembling a combination of colorful, fragrant flowers. When the bouquet was ready and John was about to leave, something unexpected happened. From the small room at the back, two small runners, or rather a pair of twins, came dashing into the shop, laughing and playing, their footsteps echoing in the cozy space. John froze. For a moment, he thought his mind was playing tricks on him. His eyes fixed on the children, and his heart raced. It was as if he were looking at two younger versions of himself. The twins had the same light hair and the same deep, dark eyes he saw in the mirror every morning. The impact was immediate and overwhelming, leaving him speechless. He blinked a few times, trying to process what he was seeing. Could this be a coincidence? He had never been one to believe much in fate, but this shook him in a way that nothing in his perfectly planned life ever had. John felt his breath catch for a second, his mind racing to find a logical explanation. On the other side of the shop, Daisy, who had been arranging some flowers, noticed John's reaction and followed his gaze to her children. That's when she froze too. The twins, innocent and unaware of the tension rising in the air, continued to play and laugh, oblivious to what was unfolding around them. But Daisy noticed. And in that moment, her heart tightened. She looked at her children and then at John. The resemblance was undeniable. How had she not seen it before? They were a perfect reflection of the man who had just stepped into the shop. Daisy's mind started to whirl, and the feeling of shock overwhelmed her. She had never imagined something like this could happen. At that moment, it seemed as if fate had orchestrated the encounter, and the shock on her face mirrored exactly how she felt. John took a step forward, still staring at the children. His body was tense, and he could barely form the words spinning in his mind. He turned slowly toward Daisy, his eyes filled with questions. "Who," he began, but had to stop and take a deep breath before continuing. "Who is the father of these children?" Daisy, still processing the magnitude of the moment, felt a lump form in her throat. She knew this question was coming, but she wasn't prepared for the reality of facing it so suddenly. Her mind was full of doubts and fears. What did this mean? Who was this man who looked like a reflection of her children? She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "They don't have a father," she answered, her voice slightly trembling but firm. "They're mine. Just mine." John frowned, confused and even more intrigued. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice now softer, but still full of disbelief. "How is that possible? They look like me. It can't just be a coincidence." Daisy felt the pressure building, but she knew she couldn't hide the truth. She looked at her children, then back at John, and finally decided that he deserved to know. "I always wanted to be a mother. That was my biggest dream," she began, her voice a bit calmer now, as she recounted the story she had kept to herself for so long. "I was in a relationship before I moved here, but we could never have children. I tried everything, but nothing worked. That's when I decided that if I couldn't be a mother that way, I'd do it on my own." She paused, looking John directly in the eyes. "I went to a fertility clinic and had artificial insemination. They told me the donation would be completely anonymous, and I never wanted to know who the donor was. For me, the most important thing was fulfilling my dream of becoming a mother. And these two are the result of that." John remained silent for a few moments, absorbing what she had just said. The idea of being a father had never crossed his mind, and now he was facing an unexpected reality. The twins, still playing without realizing the intensity of the moment, were a part of him. He knew it deep in his soul. Daisy, still nervous from the revelation, continued. "I never thought this would happen," she admitted, her eyes welling up with tears. "I never imagined that one day I'd meet the donor, that he would walk into my shop and everything would change like this." John took a step forward, now calmer, but still deeply affected by everything he had learned. He looked again at the children and for the first time in his life, felt a deep connection forming within him, something that went beyond anything he had ever experienced. "I don't know what this means for us," John said, his voice deep, but full of a sincerity Daisy had never heard before. "But I want to understand. I want to get to know these two." John felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. A vague flicker of memory began to take shape in his mind. Years ago, during a period of financial struggles, he had done something he rarely mentioned. He made a sperm donation. At the time, it seemed like a quick solution to get some money, but he never imagined it would have real consequences in his life. He looked at Daisy, stunned. "This can't be," he murmured, but deep down he knew it all made sense. The children, their features, the timeline. It was the only explanation. Daisy watched him, still wrestling with her own emotions. John knew those children were his, and the realization hit him with overwhelming force. He felt an instant connection, something he had never imagined feeling. As if, suddenly, his entire life had led to that very moment. And figure out what happened. Daisy watched him, still surprised, but relieved by the honesty she saw in his eyes. She didn't know what the future would bring, but at that moment, it became clear that fate had crossed their paths in an irrevocable way. From that moment on, John and Daisy began meeting more frequently. At first, everything revolved around the children. John wanted to know them, wanted to understand what it meant to have a part of himself reflected in those little beings full of life. Daisy, in turn, began to open up space for him in their routines, observing how John, a man used to control in the business world, allowed himself to be swept up by the sweet and unpredictable chaos the twins brought. Each new interaction between them strengthened their bond. Slowly, John and Daisy began to truly get to know one another, moving beyond the initial shock. The growing feelings between them were palpable, but neither of them rushed. Both were learning, exploring a new kind of relationship that didn't just involve them, but also the children. One day, after an especially long visit to the flower shop, Daisy invited him for coffee in the small room at the back of the store. And John accepted with a subtle smile, trying not to show how much it meant to him. Sitting there, with the soft scent of flowers around them and the distant sound of the twins playing, they began to truly talk. Not about flowers, or business, but about their lives. Daisy shared more about her journey, how she had left her hometown in search of a new life in Manhattan, how she had decided to have children on her own, and how she had fought to raise the twins with love and dignity, despite all the challenges. John, in turn, shared parts of his life that he rarely discussed with others. He talked about how, despite all his financial success, he had always felt like something was missing. His life, once filled with material achievements, suddenly seemed empty in comparison to the simplicity and love he saw in Daisy's eyes and her children's. He had never allowed himself to think about family, but now that idea began to grow inside him, like a seed planted by chance, yet quickly starting to bloom. In the following weeks, their meetings became more frequent. John offered to pick the twins up from school when Daisy was busy with the shop, or sometimes he'd stop by to help with small tasks, like carrying flower boxes or fixing something broken in the store. Over time, Daisy began to see how genuinely he cared for her children. It wasn't just a matter of obligation or curiosity. John was becoming attached to them in a sincere and deep way. On a sunny autumn afternoon, Daisy decided it was time to return the gesture. She closed the shop early and prepared a picnic in the park with the twins. John had mentioned that he enjoyed spending time outdoors, so she invited him to join them. He accepted with enthusiasm. At the park, while the children ran and played, John and Daisy sat together on a blanket on the grass. The atmosphere was light and relaxed, and for the first time, Daisy allowed her feelings for John to surface. They talked for hours, laughed about small memories, and at one point, Daisy realized she was falling in love with him. His attentive gaze, the way he interacted with the twins, and even the slightly awkward way he tried to understand her world, all of it captivated her more each day. John, on the other hand, already knew he was in love with Daisy. At first, he tried to resist, thinking it didn't make sense for someone like him, so used to his routine as a confirmed bachelor. But with each new meeting, with every new smile, he found himself more involved. He realized that Daisy completed him in a way no one else ever had. She was strong, independent, and caring, and the presence of the twins only strengthened the idea that he wanted to be a part of that family, wanted to be more than just an occasional visitor. It was during that picnic that John decided he needed to speak about his feelings. While the children ran around them, he looked into Daisy's eyes and with his heart racing said, "Daisy, I know this might seem a bit fast, but I feel like my life has changed since I met you. I never imagined I'd find something like this, something so real. I've fallen in love with you. And I've fallen in love with these twins. I don't want to be just a visitor in your life anymore. I want to be with you, I want to be part of this family. If you'll let me." Daisy remained silent for a moment, surprised by the sincerity of his words. She looked at him, then at her children who played carefree, and felt a wave of emotion. She had also fallen in love with John but had been afraid to open up, to allow someone into her life and her children's lives. But at that moment, seeing the honesty in his eyes, she knew she could trust him. "John," she began, her voice soft and full of emotion, "I feel something special for you too. I was afraid to admit it, to allow myself to feel this, but you've shown me that love can happen in unexpected ways. I want to let you into our life, into my life. I want us to do this together." John smiled, his heart overflowing with happiness. He moved closer to her and kissed her for the first time, and as he gently held her hand, he whispered, "We can build something beautiful together." Daisy smiled back, and in that moment, they both knew they were ready to face the future as a family. It wouldn't be perfect, it wouldn't be easy, but they had something that connected them in a deep and true way, the love they had found in each other and in the twins. And so, under the clear Manhattan sky, the love between John, Daisy, and her twins blossomed. They decided to walk together toward a future filled with love, trust, and new possibilities, certain that fate had brought their lives together in a unique and irreplaceable way. As time passed, the twins, despite being so young, grew attached to John in an unexpectedly natural way. They would run to him whenever they saw him arrive, their laughter filling the air with innocent joy. To them, John wasn't just someone new in their lives, he was a figure who brought safety, affection, and a presence they hadn't even realized they needed. And over the days, weeks, and months, John found himself more and more involved. At first, it was curiosity about understanding that unexpected bond. But as he watched them grow, laughing together, learning and developing, something deep within him began to change. The twins brought a light he never knew he needed, a sense of belonging that no business deal or material success had ever given him. They became the children he never expected to have, but in every possible way, they were exactly what he needed to fill the void he never knew he carried. And in return, he became the father he was always destined to be, not because blood tied them together, but because love and care formed an even stronger connection. Together, they built a new life, where John not only found the family he never sought but the family that would change his life for the better forever. If you enjoyed this heartfelt story and want more content that touches the heart, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your presence is so important in helping us continue to bring more inspiring and emotional stories. Join us and share the love. See you soon.